What is the greatest Christian movie of all time? Well, we want your help to answer that. And to help you do that, Plugged In has created a bracket inspired by March Madness. That's why I've got our little basketball here. Inspired by March Madness, we put together a bracket of 64. 64, no joke.
Goodness gracious.
Christian movies.
Yes.
Paul, are you excited for Christian movie madness?
I cannot tell you how excited I am. Honestly, I am super jazzed about this. It's going to be super fun because there's nothing that says Christian cinema than a big round of competition and trash talking.
Absolutely.
You know,
Just
I think that's an important part.
Hardcore competition.
Exactly. Let's pit these well-meaning movies against each other and see which one is the absolute best. I want you to talk about the number one seeds because I think the number one seeds are actually super interesting.
Yep. And I guess we should say beforehand, so how we seeded this bracket, because, 1 through 64, right? We have 4 divisions, 1 through 16. Each division just had to be Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. That was our 4 divisions.
That wasn't my idea.
That's what we landed on. Thanks for throwing me under the bus, Paul. So we determined these seedings by adjusted lifetime box office gross on Box Office Mojo. So these are the Christian movies that have made the most money over time. We just felt like
Christian movies defined as Box Office Mojo would define them. So there are some movies that you might expect to see in the list that are not there.
Sure.
And some movies that are on our bracket that you might say don't deserve to be there.
Sure.
Box Office Mojo does not rigorously sort through theology. So
that's
there
fair,
you go.
but that's why we want you to vote. So if there's a movie on there that you don't want moving on, definitely vote for the one that's opposing it.
Correct.
So our first number one seed in the Matthew division is actually the Jesus film.
Which is ironically not a part of Box Office Mojo.
You're right, we're cheating already. Please explain why that is the case.
So the Jesus film has always been a huge part of Campus Crusade for Christ, now Cru. It has supposedly been seen by billions upon billions.
5 billion, I think, was the last report. So
so this is a big deal.
It felt like a 1 seed based on that alone, even though we couldn't find any financial information about it. Came out in 1979.
Correct.
So the Jesus film, that's the number 1 seed. So moving on to our Mark division, the number 1 seed there is The Passion of the Christ.
Which is kind of a no-brainer. For a long time, it held the record for the highest grossing R-rated movie of all time.
Right.
So, and of course, it's a beloved movie for a lot of Christians. They probably took their kids, 5-year-olds, to see it and scarred them for life. But that's another story.
I saw it pretty young.
Yeah.
It left an impact on me.
That explains a lot. Okay.
All right, so moving on to the Luke division, our number 1 seed there, Ben-Hur from 1959. This one definitely benefited from that adjusted lifetime gross. This came out a long time ago. But
it did come out a long time ago.
Tell us a little bit about Ben-Hur.
But it's one of the best movies of all time. Not just one of the best Christian movies, but the best movies of all time. Stars Charlton Heston in his Charlton Heston prime. Features this amazing chariot race that is one of the classic scenes in all of cinematic history. And it goes for a good 3.5, 4 hours.
3.5. Yeah. Just a real breezy watch.
Just a breezy watch.
All right, so moving on to our John division, we have as the number 1 seed Chronicles of Narnia, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, which I think came out 2005. Does that sound right?
Somewhere around there, yeah.
Yeah. Liam Neeson as Aslan.
Yeah. I think it actually came out later than that because I think I reviewed it.
Okay.
So, yeah, and it was a very, very popular movie when it came out. Fantastic special effects. Liam Neeson as Aslan, who does a much better Aslan than I do. But I do have to say the book was better. So
Fair enough. But those are our 1 seeds, right? So as we're looking through this, though, what are some interesting movies that stick out to you, Paul? We'll get to the matchups in a second.
Sure.
But what are some movies that maybe you think could go a little farther in the bracket than their seeding might indicate?
Oh, man, that's a really great question. So I think that any Kendrick's Brothers movie that you have here, that has a really strong chance of moving on.
We have several.
I think that we have a lot of Kendrick's Brothers fans kind of in our midst. I do think that the Chronicles of Narnia movies should be doing pretty well.
I would think so, too. Yeah, we have 3, so Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, Prince Caspian, and Voyage of the Dawn Treader.
Correct. We have 4 football movies. We often sometimes joke that half the Christian movies that are made have some sort of football tie-in.
Football, yep.
That proves not to be the case. But I would definitely love to see some football movies move farther on this basketball-inspired bracket. I think that would be curious. So,
yeah, one of those movies, just to kind of blend your 2 points, Facing the Giants, right? Early, maybe is it the earliest or it's not the earliest?
No, second earliest.
Second earliest Kendrick's brothers movie, but pretty beloved. So that's actually my dark horse pick. It's a 12 seed. That's my dark horse pick to go deep in the bracket.
So actually, can I make a confession? I have a little short story to tell. At the time when Facing the Giants came out, I was working as a religion writer for a secular newspaper.
Okay.
And I went to this secular religious newspaper conferences, and the Kendricks brothers actually presented Facing the Giants to us. And this is a room full of grizzled journalists and all that sort of stuff. I was sort of in the back sitting at this table. The trailer came on, and I do have to confess that I was trying not to cry a little bit.
Getting a little misty.
The trailer was super effective. I'm a little embarrassed to say that. But yeah, Kendricks Brothers, you did a nice job with that trailer.
Yeah. So we tried to get a good mix of movies in here. Obviously, we're working off the Box Office Mojo list, but how we kind of spread things out. Because half the fun of this is just seeing the interesting matchups.
Oh, I love the matchups.
That are happening and that could potentially happen a little bit later down the road. And some other movies that we have in here, we've got The Ten Commandments, another Charlton Heston movie.
Our second Charlton Heston movie.
And you mentioned a lot of the Kendricks brothers films as well, a lot of football movies. We've got 2 VeggieTales movies in.
We have some of my favorite movies. The Risen is in there, which I really enjoyed.
Yeah, Joseph Fiennes.
Paul, the Apostle of Christ, which I'm partial to because of the first name. The Young Messiah is in there, and it's a low seed.
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to do very well.
You think it might be underrated?
I thought it was a well-made movie. It has Sean Bean, and Sean Bean does not die in this movie, which is a rarity.
That is a rarity.
So
yes, big time. Joseph Fiennes actually represented in 2 movies here. He's got Risen, and then he's also in Luther, which is a 14 seed. Luther about Martin Luther and the Reformation.
See, now all of a sudden I have not seen Luther, and now I want to go see it.
There you go. Well, that's part of it too. Right. This is, in addition to just, there are a lot of Christian movies. Plugged In has reviewed a lot of these movies too. I think maybe 63
out of the 64 movies.
Right? Yes. Plugged In's reviewed a lot. But we wanted to have fun with this. We wanted to invite our audience just to come alongside, tell us what the greatest Christian movie of all time is in this fun little format.
Yeah, it is super, super fun. So are there any matchups that really strike you as being particularly interesting? Any upset specials that you would have?
Yeah, so upset special, so I mentioned Facing the Giants a little bit earlier. It's a 12 seed. It's going up against, in the first round, The Shack.
Oh.
Which I know, again, pulling from the list that we had, I know maybe some people have some theological objections to a movie like The Shack, so I could see Facing the Giants pulling the upset there. And looking at the bracket, I could see it going farther than that.
Oh, yeah.
Potentially to the final 16 or 8. Depends.
Wow, really?
I think so, yeah.
Wow.
I think there's a lot of goodwill for Facing the Giants as a movie.
That's really interesting. I think it'll definitely get past The Shack, although I'm sure there are some Shack fans out there. Shaquille O'Neal was always good in the tournament.
Sure.
But anyway, but I don't think it's going to make it past the round of 16.
Okay. All right, well, let me give you another one. I don't know if it's necessarily an upset special. It's another 5 to 12 matchup.
Okay.
But a more recent movie that came out, Jesus Revolution.
Oh, yes.
Which I remember Adam Holtz did the review on it, and he was very, very impressed.
It's a great movie.
Yeah. So that's a 5 seed in our Mark division, and I think, maybe it'd be knocking on the door of the round of 16 or the round of 8. It could go a little ways. Yeah,
I could definitely see the Jesus Revolution going pretty far. It was a really strong movie. Those are Erwin brothers. They know how to make a good movie.
And another one that I will be interested to see, and I'll be interested to see this overall, because how do the older movies, you have the older movies, the newer movies, and then kind of the in-between, right? The early 2000s, approaching 2010s. How do those all kind of grade out in people's minds, right? we have a matchup in our Luke division that I think it's just tough that these two movies got put together. Both very recent. We have The Best Christmas Pageant Ever.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have Sound of Hope, the story of Possum Trot. So 2 new movies covering different topics, but they're going head to head.
Yeah, yeah. It is sort of interesting because you do have some of these older movies, right? You have some fantastic classics, but it does show, I think, how much the Christian cinematic film industry has grown because we do have so many more recent examples.
Yeah.
And I think we've got some really strong contenders. I'll be interested to see how The Robe does. The
Yeah.
Robe is one of those old 1950s.
It's the oldest movie on our bracket. Yep.
It is a classic movie that I don't think hardly anybody out there has ever seen, even though it stars Richard Burton. It stars some pretty big names. But I don't think that's going to do quite as well. So that's also an upset because I would imagine that it's seated pretty highly.
It's a number 2 seed.
A number 2
So you
seed,
see what
yeah.
yeah, that could be upset alert.
Okay, so who's up against The Robe?
90 Minutes in Heaven.
Oh, well, that could be interesting.
It could be interesting.
Yeah.
But again, this is why we talk about all of the matchups that can happen in this. We hope people get a kick out of it too, because say The Robe moves on.
Yeah.
It could end up in a second round matchup against the Pirates who don't do anything. 2 movies, I mean, equally grand in scale and epic in tone, right? So we will love to see what people do and how they vote for sure. Do you have any other matchups you'd like to talk about?
Well, I do want to talk about that first round matchup between the Pirates Who Don't Do Anything and the Kendricks Brothers movie.
There you go.
Courageous.
Yes.
I think that could be pretty interesting.
Yeah.
So, because you do have 2 sort of heavyweights within the Christian realm, VeggieTales, everybody loves VeggieTales, or at least I did, and the Kendricks brothers.
Right.
So I think that could be a pretty interesting matchup.
Awesome.
I know who I'd be rooting for, but
okay.
I'll keep that to myself because we have nothing to do with any of this voting.
Yes, Plugged In will be abstaining from the vote since we put this whole thing together, but that won't stop us from maybe printing out our own brackets and filling out how we think it might go, and maybe we'll have a little competition in the office for it.
I think that would be great, just for pride and prestige.
All right, that'll wrap up our Christian movie bracketology conversation right now. We are so excited to see how you vote, and if you would like to vote, we have a link in the description below, and we also have a handy-dandy QR code that is appearing on the screen right now. So scan that, go vote, check out Plugged In's Christian Movie Madness. We'll see you next time.